Yes, we are. So initially, let's understand, why do we need web applications, when we have console applications or desktop-based applications, or how it is significant when compared to other technologies or other way of application works and all. So basically, before starting the ASP.NET thing, right? So it's very important to understand how internet technology works, right? So when I say internet technology, I mean that how the internet hub works. So what exactly is the internet hub, right? How it is different from using your desktop-based application and working on an intranet or internet. Basically, today we'll actually understand the internet part, how it actually works, and we'll actually see how web application is, we have more advantages with web applications than compared to desktop-based applications or console applications. Right? So let's see how the internet hub, whatever we say, internet hub or internet works. So, and before that, let's just have a quick view on how the Windows or the desktop-based applications, right, and the web applications are. So when we come to desktop-based applications, right? So this is like take an example of Skype. Let's say Skype is something which we have to install and then use, right? Which means think in a form of developer, right, and the user too, right? So whenever you are developing any application, which is a Windows-based or desktop-based application, right? So let's say you have got 50 clients, right? 50 clients or 50 consumers of your application, right? So what you have to do, so you have to actually go to all 50 users, or you have to provision all 50 users to install your application, and then they can start using your application. Fine. And if there is any change in application type, then what happens again? We have to make sure that all the users, all the consumers of your application have to upgrade, right, your software, right, so that they can actually they can use the new features or new fixes you have done for your application. Which means unless they update their software in their machines, right, they will not be using the features, whatever we have updated. That is something, that is how a Windows-based application or desktop application or a console application will work. Right? As we are already seeing, watching many softwares, like you have Skype, you have, like, let's say, let's take an example of Dropbox itself. Like when we install, anyways, Dropbox is more on both the web-enabled and the installed one, right? Or take an example of desktop Bing, right? Or Gtalk, which you can actually install, or GoToMeeting itself, right? They are like Windows-based application you have, where you have installed it and you're using it, right? So till the software is available, yes, you are using, but if there is any upgrade, then you have to make sure that whoever is using the software is updated, right? Which means there is some maintenance which need to be done, to be taken in for Windows or desktop-based applications. Once your consumers are increasing, then you have to make sure that you are actually making this making this available for the wider population. So that is how the Windows or desktop-based applications works. But let's see how web application works here. Now web application. Now when we say web application, take an example of Google or any forum as such, let's say MSDN forum. Right? So how they work, we never install or we never set up anything in our machine. Right? The only thing which we download and install or do anything is the browser. If you have any internet browser, it can be Explorer, it can be Safari or Mozilla or Chrome or I don't have Avant or Opera or whatever. So if you have one browser installed in your machine which can support HTML rendering, that is more than enough for a web application surfing. Now I'm actually talking in terms of consumer. Now when we talk in terms of developer, we normally place web application in one machine. When I say one machine, within one machine can be balanced. Let's take a happy path scenario, right? So when I say one machine, which means it is balanced in one machine, that you put a code and you make sure it is available for all 15 users. I'm just taking an example of, let's say for my web application there are 50 consumers, right? Now which means, so all the 50 consumers, right, can actually access my code which is placed at one place. Now here, if I have to upgrade something or provide some fix to my application or anything, I just have to change it one place, and all the 50 users can see the change or changing functionality or changing they can see the issue being fixed at a time. Now you can see maintenance part for this application is something where you have to touch base at one place. Whereas in your Windows or desktop, you have to actually make sure as your consumer increases, you have to make sure everyone is in sync with your latest updates here. That is the main difference between your desktop-based applications and web applications. Right? Now, when we say one place here, which is one machine, right? So it is something which we normally call a server. We normally place our web application in one server and we make sure that it is available for different users. Right? So as if we normally browse something, some web application, right? So let's say you have a Gmail account, you're surfing from your web application here, and if you surf same thing from let's say from the mobile or tab, right, you actually see the same set of emails, right? Same set of state of your emails, whether it is read or unread or anything, right? It will be same. Why? Because the main component which is providing out the details of your mail is same, right? But the interfaces may be different. When I say interfaces may be different, which means like, let's say you have a Gmail account. Let me just give you this, right? And you are actually surfing through a browser, right? Now let's say you have 10 emails among which you have some, let's say some 9 emails are all read and one email is new one, right? Similarly, when you have let's say you go to some other machine or you go to some tab, right? And there you open a browser which is compatible with tab and you open Gmail. You will see the same status. Also, let's go to the native apps. Let's say you have something called, you're using mobile and you're using the app of Gmail. You are using a Gmail app, let's say. Right? Even there, you will see the same status. Right? Or it can be a tab where you're using again Gmail app, which is, when I say app, which is a native app, you download and install the app in your mobile. But even there, you will see the same status. Now, how these are maintained? Now, there should be something which should work common for all, right? From there, he can actually read and update the status for all. But anyways, now when we talk about native apps, right? Anyway, this is something again which is native to mobile, and whenever there are updates, they have to update it to get a feature or to get a fix. That is a different issue. But here you can see data is in sync, that is providing whatever data is being provided is in sync. How can I make that in sync? By having a single standalone web services. Right? So web services are a single point of contact which emits, let's say, appropriate data based on whatever we request. Right? Whatever we request to web service, let's say it is actually giving you some data in form of some protocol. It can be XML protocol or a direct object protocol, anything. Right? And we are able to map that protocol with a browser or a tab browser or an app or anything. Right? So this component is called a web services. So this is something which we normally call as a middle tier, right? Middle layer where this will work as an interface for the user interface and the database. So when I say middle tier, let's take an example of a feeder application. We have a database. We have normally seen that we have a database which directly interacts with, let's say, our UI, which is an interface, right? We have created a control application which was directly hitting the database and getting the data. So this is something which is a two-tier application I have. But in UI, right, when I say UI, right, so this can be anything. This can be a browser, this can be a desktop-based application or a mobile app or anything. Now, if you write same type of code, now when I say it has to connect to database and get data, right, so that piece of a complex code, whatever you're writing to build logic or data and everything is common across all the interfaces. When I say all the interfaces, it can be a browser or any app or anything. Now that is the reason why we have something called middle layer called web service, or we normally call business logic layer, right? Where you are actually writing based on a request. Let's say from user interface, you got a request, I want details for my inbox, that's it. Now your web service will actually trigger your database and get all the details of your inbox, and it will actually format your inbox into some XML protocol, let's say, and it will give you how many mails are there, which is unread, which is read, which is flagged to important, right? Which is flagged to some label, everything will give to your interface, and then your interface will be able to map. This is something which is called as a three-tier layer, where here we have a web services and you have UI. Let's say this UI is a website. Right? So here you can see, yes, I'm providing the website and the web services. So we will be learning both website. Now there in website part we will be learning ASP.NET, how to create a website and all. Also, we'll also see the latest technology, which is MVC4 and some features of 5. Right, so this is what we are going to learn. We're going to start with ASP.NET on website, how to actually see, what are the different things we have in the website, and then once we are comfortable with ASP.NET, we'll be moving on to MVC. In MVC, we'll actually learn the MVC 4th version. When I say 4, right, 4 or 5 is the versions of MVC. The latest version of MVC is 5, which is upgrade to 4 actually. So, but we'll be watching and then we actually checking out for all the features of this, right? And once these are done, then we'll be looking at something called a web service, which is a legacy web service, how to create a visual link or visual or the web service normally using the type web service project, and also we'll see WCF, which is the latest technology which we normally call Windows Communication Foundation. Right? So this will be our watching out. So this is a part of when we say Windows Communication Foundation, web services, and the user interface, which is website, right? So this will be a part of all our ASP. The last phase of our learning actually. right? When we have already done the 2 phases of learning all the fundamentals, all the concepts, all the daily activities, and now we have the web part, right? So, and one more thing what we'll be touching upon is something which is a web server, which is IIS. So IIS is Internet Information Services, which is a single web server which we have, right? Where you can actually deploy your website to make it available for all, right? So let's understand what is this statement is all about. For this, we'll have to understand how the Internet Hub works. Now here, let's say you're in a city. Let's say you're in New York City. Let's say, right? I'm just taking a simple example here. So let's say you are in New York City. This is a New York City area, right? Where, let's say you have 2 streets. Right? Now, for each street, right, there will be an internet provider. Now, this internet provider will be serving internet to all the members of your street. Right? Same way, let's say you have some other street where you have some other internet provider which is serving the same way here. Now, how these guys are providing internet is, let's say for a complete New York City, there will be one big internet hub server which is providing internet to the actual providers. Right? So let's say in a city that you have a main hub server here, internet hub server, and it is providing the internet. Now similarly, take one more city, right, which is, let's say, some Florida here, where again you have many streets and you have a hub, which is main hub server of your internet provider, right? In this way, if you take one complete country, right, let's say United States, then you have your one big hub server which is connecting, let's say, all the states as such. Let's say it is connecting over here and it is connecting this. Right? So let's take another example of here that you are in India. Right? So where, let's say we start with, let's say here you are in, let's say, Hyderabad. So we have multiple streets where your internet provider hub is providing internet to all. And if you take a state of Andhra Pradesh, let's say, right, then so you have a main hub server for a complete state which is providing to different cities. Same way, let's take a Mumbai server. So in Mumbai, let's say you have all this one server at Mumbai serving the streets. Take an example again of Maharashtra, where there is a single hub which is provided to all cities like Mumbai and different servers. Now here, this is state and this is state. Now you have one big server, hub server, which is connecting all states, let's say in different places in India. Now if you take Asian continent and this continent, right, so there will be hub routers, big hub routers which are connected to single routers. Now you can see in this way, across the continents, right, it will be connected. Across the streets it will be connected. Across the states it will be connected. Now, this is how all your hubs, right, will be connected so that a site which is deployed on one of the server of the United States can be served can be actually accessed by a person sitting in India. Right? Similarly, a site which is deployed in here can be served United States, actually the person sitting in New York City, he can access that site because everything is interconnected, right? And all this is possible only with the network providers who are actually sitting and running the servers, right? Making the servers live where it is actually running over the internet. So this is called as an internet. Right? And this is possible by the combination of all internet providers connecting one single hub or multiple hubs across the streets, across the cities, across the states, across the countries, across the continents. Right? So this is how the hub is created. That is the reason we normally call it the internet hub. Right? Now, so in this case, where exactly we are? Now let's say in the United States, let's say you have a server, which is let's say Google server, right? Where they have deployed application. Now this is served across world, which is google.com, let's say. But in Google, you have multiple domains like google.com, you have let's say google.co.in, right, or google.co.uk. Where they are actually, are served. Now, based on the country, right, the main hub servers will have their own deployment servers, which provide services specific to the countries also. Right, so I can have a Google node here, which is when I say India, it will be let's say .co.in, or if it is in UK, let's say it's .co.uk. That may main hub server. Now, whoever actually in India, let's say whoever tries to serve let's say google.co.in, it will be directly triggered to main hub server and it will provide. Now, it doesn't mean that the guy who is outside India cannot access the system, he can also access. But by default, whenever you surf or whenever you search for Google, right, it will actually give you the nearest node for you. Right? Then it is the second level, the upgrade level of your internet. Now, so let's talk about this server now, which is we have a server where we are actually, placing our application and making it available for all. Now, here we are actually working here. Now, once you make your application available to all, which means you are placing your server in connection with your internet hub servers. Right? So this is understood. This is something which is already understood. Now let's see how we can actually work here how this server thing works. So here, when I say server, right, this is a physical server which we have. Let's say you have a server which is, for example, let's say it contains a Windows server. Let's say 2012. It contains the latest software, which is an operating system, which is several operating system we have in this. So when I say server, take in this way, which is a Windows server or some Linux server, whatever, which is a physical server machine I've installed my OS. Now in this server, you will have something called web server. Now there is a difference between a normal server and a web server. Now web server is basically to serve your website to outside world. Right? So that's the reason why your web server and the physical server are not same. In your physical web server where you have some operating system, it can be Windows or Linux, right? You will have something called web server. And one of the web server which we'll be using in .NET to serve our websites is IIS. Now this is our web server, which is Internet Information Services. Now this acts as an engine where, let's say in one of your folder, let's say some C drive or wherever, I will actually see that part, you have placed your code. When I say code, this is something where you have all web pages being placed. Right? Web pages being placed. Now let's say your site, whatever you have placed here is something called, let's give some domain, which is srihar.com. Right? And let's say I've placed all my code in a secure server, right, where it is deployed on some machines, right? Now whoever tries to serve my srihub.com, right? What happens? It will actually serve the main hub servers, and that hub servers will know where exactly this domain server, my server, main server here, will be registered with some domain. So domain is nothing but this, which is your name of your, let's say, post name of your server or the main domain registered. And every time you have your domain, right, let's say it's srihub.com, right, will be actually registered with something called your IP. And this IP will be your static IP. Your machine should have a static IP so that you can actually connect and now what is static or a dynamic IP? Right? So when I say static or dynamic IP is something which in your machine, right, your IP, if you are connected to your internet network, right, so your IP will always will be changing whenever you restart your machine, or whenever you restart your machine, or whenever it gets renewed, right, your IP may change, which is your dynamic IP. And for dynamic IP you don't have to invest with it. But for static IP you have to buy the static IP. If you want your IP to be same in your machine, for your machine basically, right, then you have to buy your static IP, right, which where you are actually making your IP permanent for your machine. We basically may make static IPs for servers, right? If you are not using any internet provider to deploy your site, and if you are making your own machine, your own server, like normally big vendors do this, like ICSI servers or Google servers, right? Or Microsoft servers, or Amazon. They maintain their own servers, right, to actually serve, because they have their own their own providers to actually maintain the sites and all. So they maintain their servers, which are normally called super servers, right, where they can have multiple nodes and everything, right, and they serve the websites, right. So that is something which is your static IP or static IP, which will be mapped to your domain, and whoever actually serves it, it knows, right, to which IP it has to go, and then it will actually touch base the web server. Now whenever any trigger comes to my web server, this will actually, as I connect my code to the server, right, it will search, okay, whether the resource is available here or not. If it is available, then it will serve. Let's say whenever you click on srihub.com, which means it is looking for some home page, right? Then I have my home page here, and I will be serving that trigger. My IIS will pick it and it will serve back. That's the reason why you actually get your site page. Okay. So this is how normally actual internet surfing, actual server thing and web server thing actually works. So anyways, we'll actually learn the IIS server too, right? How to enable, how to install your IIS server in your actual server. So it doesn't need a server. Even you can actually install your IIS in your work, in your regular workstations too, right? If you have any laptop where your Windows operating system is installed, right, you can actually enable that. If you're using Mac, no, you can't do that because IIS only works on Windows servers. Right? So we'll see how to install IIS, and we'll see how to deploy a website, how to serve the website now. And obviously we'll be seeing how to develop a web using ASP.NET, and what are different things which we have, what are different controls which we have, So in our webs, ASP.NET, right, again I'm saying we'll be concentrating more on web development, not web design. Right? So ASP.NET is more towards web development, and when I say web design, it is something which is HTML, JavaScript, right, CSS. But this is something which is different technologies, right, which is web design. So we are going to see web development. What are the different things which you have in ASP.NET, main architecture and everything which allows us to develop websites. Right? So this is something which is a quick introduction to the technologies, the difference between a web and the native applications.